So you want to be a teacher assistant, assistant teacher, a paraprofessional, whatever they call it in your district. I'm going to help you ace the interview. In my district, we call it a teacher assistant or a TA. So that's what I will be referring to it as, but whatever they call it where you are, you know what I mean. So and when I mean just, I mean earlier today, a few hours ago, see, I'm a little dressed up today, got done conducting these interviews. I sat in on the interviews with my principal and assistant principal to try to hire a TA for me for the next school year. Now, 6 months ago, I was also sitting in on these interviews because we hired one in the middle of the year. So now I've been on the other side and I know what they're looking for. I have the exact questions that we used for mine just today. So I'm going to go over what are some good answers, some bad answers. Of course, answer truthfully, but things to say and not to say. Think about your background with teaching children. So, obvious answers here. Tell us your background. We have many people who say things like, I worked at a daycare. We had one lady today who she had a lot of experience. She was a former teacher, took time off, was actually doing the job part-time, the exact job that she's applying for to be full-time with me. So you can say that, or some people say, I did the older kids' autism and now I want to try a younger age. Just let us know what experience. If you don't have experience with a job, tutoring, church nursery, whatever experience you have, all the people that we interviewed today did have experience. What do you think a typical day in the ECSE program would look like? ECSE stands for Early Childhood Special Education. So it's basically, what would a preschool class look like? So what we're looking for is just tell us the schedule where you work, maybe in the preschool that you worked with, or if you did work this exact job at another place, just tell us about the day. If you haven't worked in this environment, tell us what you think the day would look like. If you kind of hesitate and go, I don't know, that's going to make you look bad. You might say something like, there's recess and playtime and snack time and circle time. And you can give an exact schedule of how it worked where you used to work. What instructional strategies or programs or ideas do you have for working with early childhood special education students? And my principal also expanded this to, or tell us what you have been doing where you already work. So instructional strategies might be ideas that you have. For example, one person today said, well, in the classroom where I worked, we had centers and the kids switched around. We had a story time. And there's no one right answer because another one answered and she was really good too. I try to see what that kid enjoys. And then I kind of throw in the learning while they're enjoying it and not realizing they're learning. That was a great answer too. So not everybody has to give the same answer for it to be a good answer. If you have any ideas of instructional strategies, tell us what they are. And now that I'm giving you this ahead of time, gives you time to prepare. How will you manage student behaviors with 3 and 4-year-old students? What are your goals for them? So if you're applying to a TA job with older kids, this could apply too. What strategies for behavior would you use with autism kids or whatever you're applying to? I know TAs can be for special education, but also the lower grades, definitely kindergarten, in some places first grade have TAs. So anyways, what behavioral strategies? So some of the people who interviewed today would say things like, I try to say it in a positive way. I try to redirect. I try to nurture that kid and find out what's going on. For us specifically, this is 3 and 4-year-olds. So you have to have a nurturing aspect of it before you can get to the behavior. What are your goals? So maybe some might say, my goal is to find the root cause of the problem, or My goal is to build a relationship so that I can get to what's going on, or so that they trust me. Things like that. How will you work with your teacher? That would be me, but also expanded to, and the other assistant in the classroom, because in my classroom, we're going to have 2. So again, there can be multiple right answers for this one, and I would like a bit of honesty so I know your personality and I can decide if that personality works well in our classroom. I'm sure you want the same. You want to work with different personalities. So some of them would say, whatever the teacher needs, I'm good at taking direction and instruction, and I'm a good follower. I work with all kinds of personalities. Another one, and this was one of our top candidates, said this, and so did the other candidate we hired 6 months ago when I did this, would say, when I see a need, I just jump in and do it. And I like that answer too. I don't wait around for the teacher to tell me. When I know what the needs are, I help, I do it. I love that. The one assistant we ended up hiring in the middle of the year had that personality, and she ended up being amazing. She would be like, oh, this student just got a new IEP goal. Let me create something that will help her. And then she did. And it was amazing. I didn't have to tell her, hey, can you create this? And think of it myself. She thought of it. She did it. She implemented it. I love that. If you're going to say something like, I just see a need and jump in. Now, of course, different teachers in my position have different types of personalities. There are some teachers who are very more controlling about what goes on, and they wouldn't want someone to do something without them telling them first. But hey, I love it if you just want to jump in and do it, and I don't have to tell you. This same TA ended up creating a notebook for me that I could use for the beginning of this upcoming school year, the next school year, of plans, because we had Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We didn't have any kids. So she took that on as her project. Anyways, my point is that I had a TA that actually ended up living up to this question and that answer, and she was amazing. So of course, don't say that if that's not actually your personality, because then people will expect follow through. Other right answers might just be, I take direction, I work well with, I'm open to new ideas, I'm open to hearing feedback if I'm doing something wrong. Our other top candidate said that. Are you willing and able to assist with toileting and diapering needs? There is no other answer to this question. Actually, one of our 2 top candidates, she said, oh, I've mastered that. And she has a lot of experience. So that was an amazing answer. I've mastered that. But at the very least, say yes. Because you would be surprised. You would think this is an interview. Of course, you're going to say yes. There have been people who have hesitated, and that does make us think twice. Back 6 months ago when we were hiring the TA in the middle of the year, I had someone go, is it older kids or younger kids? And then said, oh, okay, yeah, I'm okay with that. But that made us pause, like, oh, you didn't say yes right away. And even today, we had someone who said, well, it's been a while, but I'm willing. Nah, wrong answer. That was one of the biggest setbacks with her. So this is a job interview. First of all, I'm not saying you should be dishonest. If you don't like doing that, don't apply for a job in special education, because even the older kids in special education sometimes have diapering needs. So the answer should be yes, without hesitation, because that will be held against you if you hesitate or if anything else. What questions do you have for me? One of our top candidates, she said, I want to know from you as the teacher, what are you looking for and what do you expect from me? I loved that she asked me that. And I actually did like a lot of her answers that she gave during the interview. And I said, well, this is what I like. I like that you said this because I really like that in the TA. I like that you said that. I really like that in TA. And, this is what I like, you know? That was a really good question, because that made me go, oh, she cares. She wants to know for sure what I want in a TA, and I'm going to be working with her. You know, people had other questions. Okay, here's what not to ask. And somebody actually said this, and we were all liking her up until this. She said, so I'm in a master's program and I might have to take some time off. You know, what's the process? So first of all, she might have just meant personal leave, and we all take personal leave sometimes, and there's nothing wrong with that. But then we weren't sure if she meant something like, oh, every Tuesday I have class and I'm going to have to be off. First of all, if that is the case, you should not be applying for full-time jobs. There are lots of part-time teacher assistant jobs out there, I know, in our county. But second of all, maybe you just mean once in a while, like finals week or something, you're going to take leave. And if that's the case, no big deal. We all take leave. I took leave this year. My son had surgery. I did a couple long weekends. We all take leave. There's nothing wrong with that, but we're not sure. If you're asking that in an interview, now we're not sure how serious and committed you are to the job. And this person was looking so good before this. She had personal experience with a cousin who is special needs, which was different from working in special needs, but I think different in a good, not better, but in a good way. I think personal experience says a lot. And she had been to IEP meetings with this relative, and I was like, oh, wow. That means she's going to take IEP goals very seriously, because as a teacher, the IEP is a legal document. So I could have the best, greatest lessons in the world, but that pales in comparison to those IEP goals need to be implemented. And so I was happy about that. We were liking everything about her until she said that. And then she got off our list. So don't say stuff like that. Absolutely out of the question. And sorry, I've got helicopters flying over right now. I live near a military base. So anyways, let me know if you have gone on an interview, if you had these same questions, or if you had different questions, how you answered that, if this was helpful to you. I hope it was. And let me know if you end up getting the job. Now, if I have another video about teacher interview questions, these are teacher questions, but a lot of them may be questions you get as a teacher assistant as well. I read an article from Board Teachers. I also have a video about how to get a provisional teaching license. So if you're thinking, well, I want to be a teacher if I can, not a TA, or you want to keep all options open, maybe a TA, maybe a teacher, watch this video about provisional teaching licenses. And thanks for watching.